And anytime there's any probing, I mentioned at a restaurant tonight in discussion how you can get to discuss sex on television and radio by discussing things like the planets. In other words, if I got on the air and began to talk about astronomy, and they said, what about the moons of Jupiter? And I said, well, I'd rather not talk about that. He said, what do you mean? I said, maybe children on the moon. You see, how is it you don't talk about the nose, you talk about the ear, but the eye, the balls, the pussy, not at all. So how is it that we do that? Why don't you talk about the moons of Jupiter and not talk about a certain area? You know, you could have had a society that felt that Port Equator was dirty on the moon. And you put an area in there, a little silk and tied it over, so nobody could see Port Equator. See? So what we have to do is try to find out, or try to get into the habit of venturing outside the conventional frame of reference. Now, if you do that sexually, you're a pervert. In other words, if I were to lick a cherry tree first and then make love, my girlfriend would say, oh my God, now what the hell's the function of that? And I said, what the hell's the function of sucking on a tit? I don't get any cherry flavor. I mean, the whole lot, sucking on a tit is just as preposterous as sucking on a cherry, except I've been conditioned. And I know that's preposterous. But because I've been conditioned, it doesn't make it right or valid. That's what I'm trying to say. So whatever kind of behavior people engage in related to whatever activity of the future might be interesting and certainly different. But it's very hard to say this is the way you do that and this isn't the way you do it. That's why I mentioned at other sessions, a handbook on sex is preposterous because it's about that culture and that subculture's views regarding sex. And if sex is conditioning, how can there be appropriateness? In other words, how can you talk about stimulating areas of the body when if a frog crawled in your pussy and moved around, you become repelled? You know what I mean? My God, how disgusting. You just don't sit back and say, all right, that's a stimulating area, and the frog hops around in there, and you say, it's just horrific. Whether it's a guy's finger or a frog, it's a series of sensations, isn't it? But we're not that rational nor logical, okay? Now, suppose I wanted some girl to get down on me, and to design some piece of equipment that does that. You know, and I'm sitting there, and he says, but it's not a girl. He says, I can't tell the difference. I would be in an institution. So the idea is some structure is always set down, a procedure. And all of us look at that procedure before we do a goddamn thing. Grab a handful of tit, then stroke the hair, touch the left breast. It's so fucking synthetic. You know what I mean? It's synthetic like everything else is in the culture. I don't know what right or wrong or good or bad is or anything of the kind. However, if I had such patterns as that, I certainly wouldn't go around announcing it. Because what would happen is society doesn't say, how interesting, a variable, new systems, you know, like you know more about. Instead, they say, let me tell you about that guy. But they don't tell you about what the guy said. They just tell you about the kind of deviation. Unfortunately, I'm straight normal. Unfortunately, because I'm prejudiced and bigoted. But I think that there are patterns that people will explore in the future. But they won't say this is right. They'll say, hey, I tried something very interesting, and it worked for me. And then people try it, and they say, geez, it doesn't work for me. Then they find a person that it works for, and it works for them. But the idea of writing a book, no, no, yes, yes, you know, thinking that your patterns are the only one. There was a time when the landowner of a village and the people in it would have to have sex relations with the first girl that was going to get married in that village to try her out. And that was a normal thing. You brought your daughter to the chief, and he screwed her, and then you went off, and she got married. And the guy, he got second chance, you see. Now, that was the normal procedure. It'd be shocking to go to bed with your wife while having the chief of the village do it. Shocking for a lot of people. So, the concepts of morality. In other words, if you were screwing your wife in front of an open window with the lights on, is the person that accused you of doing that a peeping Tom? Well, you say, well, he had the window shade up. Why did he have it up? You didn't have to look. What's a peeping Tom? Suppose I said that anybody that looks at the state of Florida, which is shaped like the devil's pecker, is a sin. And so I keep an eye looking at the devil's pecker, and I put him in jail. Your social and moral codes are absurd. There's nothing, like I said before, no standards.